Ladies, gentlemen, and serum of all ages, it's now been over 2 weeks since the release of Early Access for No Rest for the Wicked, and a lot of the people who have played it since then have since taken a bit of a break as there is limited currently available content, but that is sort of part and parcel of a game that is genuinely taking part in the Early Access concept in the way that it was intended to work. This is the bare core gameplay and everything that will be built upon it. That said, yesterday evening we had our first major patch, and even before that we've had a number of smaller fixes and such, so let's talk about the changes that have been made to the game since the start of Early Access, as well as the sort of expected future. As the devs themselves have said, this is just the beginning. First up then, we should start with the most recent and most major update, the official patch 1, rather than just a hotfix. This contained an absolute truckload of changes, starting off with basically just a full page of performance improvements that are this time so major they have changed the full-on minimum and recommended PC specifications for running the game, which is of course pretty large. On top of that, we have some genuinely major quality of life changes with vendors and crafting tables and refineries all now being able to access resources directly from your storage, including in your house, rather than you having to walk around and back and forth to actually mix that stuff around. A major request from the community pretty instantly being fixed here. Housing availability has now also changed to be from the first time you enter the town, rather than after the next main campaign section, to let players access housing and storage earlier, and they've also done a bit more minor quality of life stuff past that, but pretty much all of it is appreciated in some way. This was followed by some setting changes, including nearly full rebinding now available for controller, and an alternate preset for keyboard and mouse. On top of that, we have a full-on new house in Sacrament called the Knot. This one is only 8 silver cost to buy, making it the cheapest one, probably added with housing itself being available earlier in the game, and as you might expect if you go inside, it is just quite small, multiple floors, but not big floors by any means. It's not necessarily bad, and it'll definitely do the job for just sort of housing storage chests for you early on in the game for sure, but it definitely is cheaper than the other houses for a reason. It's still absolutely nice to have more options and to have it here early too. Past that, they increase the storage amounts of pretty much every chest and cupboard that you can put in a house, which is very neat, and then they heavily nerfed the focus gain consumables, making them all genuinely half potency. Past that, some more general changes affecting what can be stored where and stack sizes and things like that, but again, all good changes. But then after that we move to balance and things get a bit crazier. The basic bow attack is now a stamina cost attack instead of costing 15 focus. I was a really big fan of the bow as an offhand weapon before this patch. I've talked about how good they are, especially as one of the only consistent ranged weapons, and how good they could be as well, as something I've mentioned on the channel a couple of times. But that was like considering it with a focus cost. Now that they have a stamina cost instead of a focus cost, you can essentially use them like primary weapons. They just happen to be on your offhand, and that means that they're essentially now ranged weapons you can use for all of your damage. Then enemies had some rebalancing, as well as some enchantments being rebalanced too. The Roost house in Sacrament has had its price reduced a fairly large amount to make it a bit more of a middle ground property now. Then some area and audio fixes and updates, some localization fixes and updates, and then an absolutely mammoth wall of bug fixes. Again, these fixes are all good. The more bugs that get snuffed out, the faster, the better. Overall, this patch is insanely large. It has a ton of genuinely important changes within it, and a ton of less in your face, but still quite important things being balanced behind the scenes too. A really solid first proper major patch. Then before that, we should probably go in chronological order. So the first hotfix was to fix up durability and repairing as a system a bit to make it just a little bit less constricting, reductions to stamina costs, fall damage, and some food-based items too to make early game food easier to obtain and make too, and then just some more general balance changes as well. Then we had the second hotfix hit on April 20th, which was mostly focused on performance improvements across the board and seems to have helped people a fair bit with the issues that were happening. There were of course still further issues, but even more fixes have been made since this patch as well, and we're definitely moving in the right direction, at least in this area. Then they implemented some more durability balancing changes, some item and boss balancing too, and they specifically moved a key short term in the Black Trench area to a chest instead of from an enemy, where the enemy itself was bugged into just not spawning occasionally for certain players. On top of this, they made it so you can craft tools rather than just having to buy or find them. They added more critter spawns and enemy spawns as well as loot spawns in the Nameless Pass, and then just another big wave of bug fixes here too. Then just 2 days later we had hotfix 3, the biggest patch up to that point, another large batch of performance improvements, a very big batch honestly, a proper exit game function being added which is nice, a few balance and enemy behavioral changes, and then just a very large wall of bug fixes on top of that too. Hotfix 4 happened the next day, April 23rd. It was much smaller, some light performance improvements, challenges and bounties no longer being deleted if abandoned is actually quite nice of of a change as well with having a confirmation button when you try to. Then we had some balance and loot changes as well, and another bit of bug fixes coming around as well. Hotfix 5 hit on April 25th, 1 week after early access released, and this was another pretty beefy one here. A ton of performance improvements, some genuinely useful quality of life changes like depositing all similar items into stacks in the storage chest, and just more clear durability mechanics. They made some changes to balance and loot once again, as well as adding in 8 whole new shields just for a bit more diversity for players who want to use shield offhands. As well, localizations were improved in all languages apparently, enemies had some behavioral changes again, and then mostly just another round of various bug fixes which are all good to nail down. Then we reached our final patch that happened before the one that just hit live servers, which is hotfix 6 on April 26th. With these came some updates to art, some more performance improvements, nerfed a quest reward, changed some drop rates, and also added a new offhand, which is the torch, mostly just for providing light in dark areas, as the ability to have multiple main and offhands lets you actually switch pretty freely, so this is a just neat addition. They made balance changes to a number of enemies as well, including trying to make the Serum Crucible a bit more smooth from start to finish, from room to room, rather than some rooms just being far harder than other ones. Then finally they just added some more localization improvements and another large chunk of bug fixes. Then, after updating every day or two from early access release, they went on slow mode for a few days, and the reason, well, you saw the size of patch 7, right? But to be more clear, the devs said that the faster they were pushing updates, which they were very much in the first week or so, the less stable the game was getting. The more bugs were popping up, and as much as they wanted the players to actually have more and actually fixed content as soon as possible, they also needed to do more testing before actual releases, and the result of that was, of course, patch 7 taking a bit longer, but being as big as it is. Basically, I'm just bringing that up to reiterate that we shouldn't expect another major patch tomorrow, the day after that, anything like that. They gave us pretty much a week between patches here, and I'd expect a similar wait time probably here, unless something major needs to be fixed in the meantime. So what does this all mean for the game moving forwards then? Well, the first major pillar being added into the game is going to be multiplayer co-op, which we of course don't have yet, and I wouldn't expect that for a number of patches yet. Still, this is a game that is really genuinely using the title of early access correctly. What we are interacting with is far from what the finished product of the game will probably be, and so each patch actually gets us just one step closer, if not multiple in some of the patches. The people who have that understanding seem to be really enjoying No Rest for the Wicked in its current state, myself included, and the developers have been clearly targeting specific problem areas that have even been brought up by player feedback specifically, most notably things like durability and food access problems, and they've pushed multiple changes to try and alleviate both of those issues. At this point, we've had some pretty major changes in a fairly short amount of time, so I'm excited to let the devs cook on this one, so to say, and see where the game goes with future updates. What do you all think then? Are you happy about the updates we've gotten so far? Are you excited for the future ones too? Let us know down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.